One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was released in 1975 and was directed by Milos Forman and stars Jack Nicholson and Louise Fletcher, and follows the story of a man who is sent to a mental institution to avoid hard labor, and along the way he meets many of the other patients at this institution as he attempts to try to better their lives and better the conditions of the institution, as it is being run by a very demanding woman, Nurse Ratchet. Guys, I'm so excited to finally talk about this movie. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is a movie that I've heard a lot about, and I recently watched this movie about 2 years ago when I decided to watch all 100 of the AFI Top 100 favorite films of all time, and this was a film that I watched and loved and enjoyed, but I knew it was something that I was going to have to rewatch at some point, and this is that time. And rewatching it, I got a whole new perspective on it, and this is one of the best films I have ever seen. Now, Milos Forman is a director that I am very familiar with. He made yet another one of my favorite movies of all time, Amadeus, and this movie, just like that, is an absolute masterpiece. From its directing, to its style, to its music, to its characters, to its themes, to its acting, to its story, everything just seems to blend together and work in this film. Now, first off, I want to talk, obviously, about the acting and the characters. I think the acting is top-notch in this film. Not only from Jack Nicholson, who does such a great job of this very sleazy type of character that is really just trying to abuse the system so that he doesn't have to, serve time. But you do like him. He's got a likability to him, and you want to see him try to help and benefit the lives of these people that are in this institution that aren't, for what we can see, getting the help that they really need, and he really gives that to them. And also, Nurse Ratchet, played wonderfully by Louise Fletcher, is absolutely amazing. She is seen as one of the greatest movie villains of all time, but I really do not see her as a villain. I see her as an obstacle, an antagonist of sorts throughout the film, because our main character is constantly trying to get the upper hand on her, and she is just wonderful. She is cold, but I see this character as somebody that is part of an older era that is looking at things a little bit differently, and so she's a little bit harsher than, say, somebody like Jack Nicholson, who really doesn't know what he's doing. He's not a medical professional, and so I feel like Nurse Ratchet is one of the most misunderstood characters ever put to film. Yes, she can be extremely unlikable, and the film really makes her unlikable, but I never saw her throughout this entire film as a villain, but she does go to some extremes, especially near the end of the film, that are very antagonistic, but nonetheless, I really love her, and I think the best stuff in the film is obviously this struggle between her and Jack Nicholson's character, which is so much fun. But also, what is great in this film are the supporting characters, all the other patients in this institution. We've got so many likable characters that all have their interesting quirks, and they are beautifully acted by the actors that portray them. We've got characters such as Chief. We've also got Brad Dourif's character, which this was his first film, aside for a film that came out before this where he was just kind of a extra, more or less. But he is wonderful in this film as this stuttering young boy that really even shouldn't be in this institution. We've also got Christopher Lloyd, who this was also his first performance ever. We've got a very young Danny DeVito, which I just could not recognize at all when I first saw him, because I was like, this person looks familiar, and then I looked up, it was Danny DeVito, and It's so amazing. These characters are so likable, and they've all got their own quirks and their own problems, but I think the movie does a good job of not making those quirks their personalities, their characters. I think each character has some sort of depth to them that makes them far more interesting than just empty shells, and I just genuinely just love it. I also like the relationship that builds between the characters in the film, particularly with Jack Nicholson's character and everybody, such as Brad Dourif's character, and also the relationship between him and Chief. I definitely think that is kind of the heart of the film. These two characters that definitely should not be in this institution. Chief, in particular, is pretending to be ill, but he is definitely not. And they have this plan to eventually get out of this place and move away to Canada. And it's just this beautiful dream that sadly gets interrupted by the end with some terrible things that go on. But I also like the way that Jack Nicholson's character grows throughout the film. He starts out this film as just really being about himself. And I feel like near the end, he still kind of is that way, but he begins to really like these other people. He begins to understand them a little bit in, the limited amount of way he can, because, I mean, he still doesn't know these characters. He doesn't know their troubles as much as he might want to think. But I do think he has an appreciation for them by the end and befriends them and wants to help them, even if it is not in the best interest to do so. And I think that's an interesting thing that the movie brings up, is Jack Nicholson's character really doing the right thing here? And is Nurse Ratchet really doing the right thing? And I really think that the film poses this question but never really intends on answering it. At least that's the reading I got while watching this film. I felt that Jack Nicholson's character, though well-intentioned, was kind of destroying the status quo, more or less. He feels like all these characters don't need to be in this institution. And for the most part, I agree. These people don't need to be in this institution. But they're also willing to be in it. They want to leave, but also they're kind of scared to. They're scared to go into the real world. And I think that is an interesting question that the movie poses. Should these characters go out into the real world, and is Jack Nicholson really helping them? Because Nurse Ratchet is the nurse, and she is trying to help them in their own way, in her own way, and she's not necessarily helping them. She's just keeping them going. And so it's an interesting question that the film poses that I don't even really have an answer to, and I don't think the movie really has an answer to, but it's an interesting question nonetheless. And again, with Jack Nicholson's character, I think it really shows at the end the growth of this character when, spoilers, Brad Dourif's character kills himself after an incident at the institution, and in this fit of rage and anger, Jack Nicholson attacks Nurse Ratchet, and this causes him to sadly get electroshock therapy and become just, somebody that has completely lost his mind and his soul. And it's so heartbreaking. And the very end of this film is extremely touching. And seeing Chief finally decide to end Jack Nicholson's life, to put him out of his misery, is really well done. And I think a fitting end to both of these characters as Chief decides to finally escape the institution and go to Canada. And it's in this moment, and also the beginning of the film, that we get kind of the main theme of the movie, and I'm talking about the music in particular. There is not a whole lot of music in this film. It is used very sparingly throughout the entire film. We kind of hear it a lot more near the beginning when we have the opening credits, and then near the end of the film at its climax. And it's really wonderful. The score, I am not exactly sure who scored this movie, but it is a absolutely beautiful score that is extremely uplifting, especially at the end of this film, and it really made me feel something. Like, I had really been on a journey with these characters, and I was sad to see them go. It's a really incredible film. I think Milos Forman really outdid himself with this film, with its direction. I think the script is also really good. Every single character in this film is likable and has something interesting and unique about them that makes their character really stand out. The acting is also incredible from both the protagonist and antagonist of the film. Nurse Ratchet is just an amazing character, even if you don't agree with what she is doing. And it's just a really, really incredible film that I'm so glad I got to see. And I also want to thank, once again, my friend Jerome for recommending me talk about this movie here on the channel. This is a movie that I have been wanting to talk about for a while and rewatch, and I'm so glad I did, because it is one of the best movies I have ever seen. So anyway, guys, with all that said, I'm gonna give One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest a 9 out of 10. Well, guys, I want to thank you for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next review.